The Toronto Blue Jays are a team that continues to not make any sense. They lose an 18-inning game to go down 2-1 in the World Series, only to come back with no George Springer and win to tie the series at 2 games apiece. They take it 6-2 over the Dodgers. We will break it down. I am Dan. That's Kyle. This is CJ Nitkowski. CJ, I texted you during the game the exact same thing I just said off the top. I can never, ever understand this team. They didn't have a reason to roll over, but if they did, I don't think anyone would have faulted them.
If they came in flat today, not that you would expect it, but you could see why. Right after that 18-inning game, 6 hours, 39 minutes, would you be a little tired? And you get the discouraging news that you're not going to have George Springer in your lineup, right? We were waiting all day. I'm sure the players obviously knew earlier than we did, but I kept checking my Twitter feed, looking for answers, what was going to happen with George Springer. And then you get that news, and he's the heartbeat of that team, or at least one of the guys that represents it really well. And not that it wasn't going to change; he was going to be there, but he wasn't going to be in the lineup. And that seemed like it could be problematic. I do like what John Schneider decided to do. Just go ahead and slide everybody up one. It's kind of an old Joe Madden trick, right? You don't have to necessarily overthink it. Who's going to be our leadoff hitter now? Instead, everybody goes up one. Isaiah Falefa ends up batting ninth and was involved in some pretty big plays. And they came out with some energy, didn't get down, right? You could be discouraged knowing you're facing Shohei Ohtani. None of that happened for this team. They did a great job, again, of putting pressure on the opposing team, and they come out winners tonight.
CJ, we saw another very good, not exceptional start from Shane Bieber, but very good, especially the way he handled Ohtani. Talk about the job he did tonight.
Yeah, I mean, that changeup that he throws is really good. It's fun to watch. And actually, I ran across a video earlier or during the game that was talking about that style of changeup. They call it a kind of a kick change these days, and it's basically based on the way that you throw. If you can't throw a traditional changeup, here's another way that you can do it and throw it as hard as you can. That seems to have worked out really well for Shane Bieber. He looked good. There was a couple of times there were some pitches up that were unintentional up in the zone that looked kind of hittable that he got away with. Overall, when it's one run, you're happy with the outing. Wasn't a lot of swing and miss there, but this is a tough lineup. At the end of the day, what you're looking for is as many zeros as you can possibly get. 5 1/3 with 1 run allowed against this Dodger offense that had a little bit of momentum after the way things finished in Game 3. It was still an outstanding outing. He tried to get through 6. We saw the John Schneider, I'm going to run out there so you can talk me out of it if you want, if you think you have it in you, which he did. It seemed like maybe Chris Bassett wasn't thrilled about it. You got to be a little careful in how you handle him down there as a starter, but it worked out well for everybody at the end of the day, and Shane Bieber did another good job.
Shohei looked human. 6 innings, gave up 6 hits, 4 runs, 4 of them earned, struck out 6. And I was mentioning to you. Sorry, I'm going on no sleep. I was mentioning this to you during the game. That maybe the previous game had a toll on him, appearing 9 times, going to base 9 times. I know you're the designated hitter, but doing all that and starting the next day, maybe that was a contributing factor.
No doubt. I mean, he did pitch into the 7th inning, which was kind of surprising. But there was times, absolutely, I think, where you saw some of that fatigue. The pitch to Vladdy, little hanging kind of spinner up in the zone. You don't see that too often. He spins the baseball really well and usually does a pretty good job of keeping it down. It's the wrong time to make a mistake to the wrong guy who's got a really nice level swing in Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And so you saw the big home run that gave the Jays the lead. And he still pitched well. And the fact that he did pitch into the 7th was kind of a big deal. I wonder how much that had to do with the bullpen not having your biggest arms for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Again, the 18 innings the night before, Dave Roberts decides he's going to push a little bit, doesn't get the first 2 batters out in the 7th inning. They're missing Alex Vesia, which is just a huge loss right now for the Los Angeles Dodgers. They go to Anthony Banda. He struggles a little bit. It hasn't been a great postseason for him. He lets up a couple of runs of his own and Shohei's, and all of a sudden now you got a pretty big lead here. So that was a really important inning. But I think it kind of dictates. There was a time, and if you guys remember this, probably about 10 or so years ago, where Clayton Kershaw was really struggling to kind of get over the hump in the postseason. And a big part of it was the seventh inning. And it was the seventh inning because they did not have a deep enough bullpen at the time with the Los Angeles Dodgers. This played out almost exactly the same way it did many years ago for Clayton Kershaw early on in his career. Now, he came around and he had some really good postseason starts after it, but the beginning was not great for him. And this is kind of how it went for Shohei. They pushed a little bit because they need him to get deeper in the game because the bullpen is light. And instead, he can't come through, and the seventh inning turns into a miniature disaster there for the Dodgers.
CJ, you mentioned Vladdy. He had another big moment. He had another good game getting on base multiple times. But how about that bottom of the order once again kicking off another big inning for this team? They have been defined this playoff stretch by those big innings kicked off by the bottom of the order. Talk about the role they're playing right now.
Yeah, you got to have it. We were actually talking about that today on my radio show and just in general for good teams, right? I mean, the fact that the bottom of the order, you got to be able to come through. Something has to happen there. We'll talk about the top of the Dodgers all day long and trying to hold those three future Hall of Famers down. That's a real challenge. But if you want to look for any kind of big innings and big run totals, it's going to have to get some help from the bottom. Ernie Clement is having a really nice postseason. He's a really good player. It's nice to see the rest of baseball kind of getting a look at him because not watching the Jays every day, I kind of thought maybe, could they do better? Is there an opportunity maybe for an upgrade over at third base? And then you start watching what he's done and you can realize why they didn't do that. So he had a couple of hits tonight. Jimenez had, what do you have? One hit tonight, 1 for 3, drove in a run. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, when he swung at that 3-0 pitch, I told Dan, I was like, man, like I get it. There's a couple different ways to look at it. But when he swung at that 3, I was like, the Jays deserve to lose this game now. Because I was like, don't swing at that 3. And I know IKF, I had him in Texas, and he's a great kid, and he's a hard-nosed player, and he's a smart player. But I was kind of wondering, there's two schools of thought. One is, hey, maybe you're not the strongest bat. Let 3-0 go by, try to draw a walk. The other part is that might be the best pitch you get in the entire at-bat, try to drive a run in. And obviously that's the way that he went, and he hit the next pitch hard. It was a line drive right at Max Muncy, nearly doubling up Andres Gimenez, and that would have been another kind of capital sin in that moment. And it was close. I don't know how you guys felt, but when I'm watching that and it goes to replay, I'm like, I don't think there's enough there to turn it over. And they did, and he was safe, and he dodged a huge bullet because that was the second time I thought the Jays deserved to lose the game in that inning.
After that call, I texted my buddies. I said, the umps must have heard it's getting too obvious. We need to give one of the calls to the Jays.
Yeah. I mean, whatever it takes to make it happen, quite honestly. So, and for Jimenez, he would have felt terrible. And he's done a really nice job for this team. And he's a solid player. He slipped trying to get back. The ball was hit really hard. That's why he was kind of exchanging and trying to change directions as fast as he was and ultimately slipped. But man, it was a little too close for comfort. And thank God for replay.
There was a moment in this game in which you immediately think back to the 18-inning game where if the Blue Jays win the World Series, it'll be a fun part of the journey to get there. But we will deal with a lot of what ifs if they don't win, because what if things didn't happen in that game? The Jays could be up 3-1 right now.
Oh my gosh, I know it, man.
But there was a glimpse of that when Ty France came in to hit for Nathan Lucas, who had 2 hits. And you start thinking, is he doing it again? Is John Schneider going to start pulling everyone out of the game to leave us with no one?
Yeah. Well, at least Barger played the whole game. That was the one that hurt the most for me in game 3, just because he's such a good player and can change the game in a couple of different ways, both with his arm and with his bat. But they saw a moment, and he did a good job, and he drove a run in. Listen, John Schneider's done an excellent job this season. We will, we pick apart what we do as fans is look for that 1 or 2 moments that end up going the wrong way and kind of hounding a guy for it. But he deserves your trust. I think he's absolutely earned it. So when he does take those chances in those moments, you're hoping that's not one you're going to talk about of a bad decision later because that spot in the lineup comes up against a right-handed pitcher and you no longer have Lucas hitting in that spot. But it worked out. He did a good job. We micromanage. It's what we do as fans, kind of the way that it goes, and it's probably unfair. But I will say this, the decisions that he has made, I think he's done with conviction, which is really important, right? He's never looked like he's been in between, whether it's talking about the kind of pitching situations where he's jogged out there twice now, what we saw today with Bieber, what we saw last time with Max Scherzer. And you have to be that guy to be able to command a clubhouse, that everything you do it with conviction, even when it comes to the pinch hit situations, whether they work out or not. You can't let that sway your decisions going forward. And I think that John Schneider knows that. He believes in the decisions that he makes, and he sticks by them no matter how they go.
From a pitcher usage perspective, tonight's game on the heels of what happened last night probably couldn't have worked out much better for the Jays. Bieber does the job almost to 6 innings, and then Bassett comes in again for two great ones. Fluharty comes in, a little bit of trouble down the end there with Varland. The game is done. That had to be the best way for them to rebound because Bieber could now be available for some innings in the game, a potential game seven, excuse me.
Yep, no, I would agree with that. There's no two ways about that part of it. I wondered about Bassett if they were going to push a little bit harder and see if they could get him to
Yeah.
finish the game. A couple of the guys that I rely on and was talking to during the game were kind of thinking maybe the same thing. It would have been asking a lot, but boy, he has really stepped up in this bullpen role. He's kind of fun to watch, just intensity that he's kind of bringing to the table and taking on the role. And like, what do I have to do to help our team win? Varlin has been pushed really hard, right? We've talked about that and how often he has pitched. And early on, the way that started, I was like, oh, this could be trouble. We saw Jeff Hoffman at least get up and start to move around a little bit. It is also beneficial that he didn't have to throw in this game. And so the bullpen was able to hold it down. If and when this season ends, if the Blue Jays end up winning it, or even if they end up losing it, Varland is going to have earned himself a vacation, a good long extended one for him to recover because he's worked his tail off. You can start to see a little bit of fatigue there, but he was able to come back and get it done. But I had gotten nervous, not so much that they were going to lose the game there, but just seeing the first two runners get on, seeing some of the swings that we were seeing in those moments that perhaps it was going to catch up with him because he has been an absolute bulldog for them.
I don't have to talk to a single Jays fan, but I can speak for Jays Nation when I say this. Chris Bassett has provided for Jays fans a a safety blanket, a baby blanket, a warm bottle of milk. When he comes into the game, you say, "I feel safe.
Yeah.
I feel nothing bad is going to happen." And wow, do fans need that right now? And it's amazing. As soon as he comes out of the bullpen, to see him, it's it's a feeling you can't describe, considering what Jays fans have gone through in this postseason run.
You're absolutely right, and I feel the same way, and then kinda go flip side of that. If you're Dave Roberts, if you're a Dodger fan, is there anybody down there right now that you're feeling that way about? Maybe Roki Sasaki, and he wasn't great in game 3, right? We saw him, kinda struggle a little bit. The difference of feeling like and they did great yesterday, they're the Dodger bullpen, but the difference of feeling like at least one of those guys, you prefer to have a couple at this point in the season, but, that'd be an embarrassment of riches, quite honestly, because everyone is kinda dragging and trying to get through this thing right now. There is something about this with Chris Bassett, I agree with 100%. That when he comes out of that bullpen, you feel good about how things are going to go. Again, there's an intensity to him. And he'd been a reliever before. I remember when he was in Oakland years ago, where there's some back and forth about him being a starter or being a reliever. And he was in the bullpen. I remember thinking at the time, man, I want this guy in my rotation because he just looked the part, carried himself appropriately. But he knows it. He knows the bullpen. This is not taking a starter who's never been there before and asking him to start in the postseason to let's see how it goes. Like he had the advantage of having done this before in his career, and he has been open arms with the role. I mean, listen, think of how tough that could be when you have a guy like Trey Savage, a young guy that comes in with very little experience and essentially taking your spot in the rotation, getting game one of the World Series. There are some veterans that may not be as unselfish as Chris Bassett is being right now in that spot. That's fine. This kid is better than I am right now. How can I help us win? He just wants that ring in the worst way, and it's refreshing to see, and it's very comforting, like you said.
Right now, Bo Bichette is running like my father, but he is absolutely swinging the bat like mid-season. Bo
Yeah.
Bichette, talk about the impact that's having.
Yeah, and I tell you, I thought Vladdy, when I saw him jogging, looked like I couldn't tell if it
Yeah.
was just an easy jog or if he wasn't feeling great either, which, of course, I'm not here to make anybody nervous,
They
but I was
they
like, "Hey."
mentioned that on the Canadian broadcast for the
They
record.
did.
They noticed it as
Like,
well.
I was like, "Oh, okay. Is anything going on over there?" Like, you don't have to say anything if you don't have to say anything, right? If nobody knows if there's something that maybe is bugging him. He feels comfortable swinging the bat. That is for sure. I think we've seen that from the beginning. He's taken some good swings. I know a little ground ball to first. I thought we saw something, the ball that Freddie bobbled there in his last plate appearance, just a little bit of a smirk, right? That edge that you get from Bo Bichette, like he wasn't happy with the way he went. He looked a little ticked off about it, but he's comfortable. That is really impressive when you think about how much time he missed. Timing pitches up, seeing breaking balls well. We know he's always going to expand. There have been a couple of times through this series so far where he has been a little bit aggressive in hitters' counts and going after pitches outside the zone, but that's his game. And he's not changing his game, even though he's missed all that time. I think it was Buck Martinez that mentioned it's kind of like, oh, I take it back. It was Jim Duquette I heard on the radio side on MLB Network Radio talking about Bichette essentially going through his rehab assignment right now. It's kind of what it is. And when you have a rehab assignment, usually get a couple of at bats, come out. Maybe the next day you get a couple, work your way up to 3. And it's kind of sort of what we have seen with him and trying to take it easy. I guess the silver lining, if there is one, with the George Springer injury, and it's really kind of hard to find one, is that at least Bo Bichette can DH. Right. I mean, that helps a little bit. I mean, you don't want it. Of course, you'd rather have both of them in the lineup if you can, but it opens up the DH spot. It's the reason he played second base, because Springer had to DH. So, unfortunately for the Jays, they've been trying to kind of battle these situations with guys that bats you want in the lineup, but you don't necessarily want in the field right now. But Bo Bichette has seen the baseball well and swinging it well.
Game 5 is a rematch of Game 1. It's Savage against Snell. Snell, 5 innings pitched, 8 hits, 5 earned, while Savage had 2. He allowed 2 runs in 4 innings. What have the teams done in between Game 1 and now to prepare each other for these starters? Because Snell obviously has to make adjustments. Savage is going to make adjustments. Tell us, because you have been in the room in between starts.
I think for both of them, it's not so much about the opponent, it's about themselves, especially for Snell. I mean, Snell just did not have his best command as we watched him in that game. And it was obvious, remember, he had 10 days off. We wondered about that. Would that affect him in a negative way? I think it probably did. And he was just having a hard time finding it and kind of catching that groove. Looked like he caught it, and the Jays did a good job of disrupting him. Again, it will always come back to the great contact, because you're not getting a lot of chase with swing and miss to go with it. It's one thing if you're going to go outside the zone, but if you're not getting swing and miss the way that Snell kind of counts on, you're going to run into a little bit of trouble. So they did not let him get settled in after what was kind of a slow start. And I think the same thing for Savage, right? To watch him go away from his split the way that he did in Game 1 was a smart adjustment, because it wasn't there, and his slider goes straight down, as we talked about. And so they do look very similar. It's interesting to me with Savage is I'm trying to figure out how many times this is, like the 3rd or 4th time now we're going to say this is the biggest game of his life. Like the biggest moment that he's been in his brief career. Like, obviously this will be his last one, unless he comes back in relief in Game 7, and maybe we'll be talking about the greatest save he's ever had in his life. I don't know. But that's a lot on a young kid, man. Again, we talked about it. All the stops in the minor leagues, 4 different stops. You get to the big leagues. That was cool for 3 games. Now here you are, Game 1 of the World Series and Game 5 of the World Series. And we did wonder right at the time, would it have been smarter to have Gausman pitch Game 1 so he could pitch Game 5? This is fun. Savage is going to get the Dodgers on the road in Game 5 in a series that is 2-2. That's going to be an environment like he's never, ever experienced before. Even though we keep saying it, it is again here right now for him. It's going to be fun. But I think the big one, the adjustments, Snell, it's going to be about command. For Savage, is going to be trying to find that split again, see what happened and what might have went wrong in that first one with it.
By the way, just to be clear, it's going to be Brendan Little with the Jays up by 1. Bottom of or top of the 9th in Toronto, getting the save. Just wanted to confirm that.
I'd love for him to get it. That would be great for him to get it. It'd be a nice redemption story on what's been a rough postseason for him.
One last thing I'd like to hear your thoughts on, CJ, from my end. John Schneider has taken his fair share of criticism in these playoffs. Lots of it fair, but a lot of it armchair quarterbacking from the fan base, of course. But one thing he has done is an excellent job of resetting this team emotionally on the heels of a disappointing loss. They've always come back out after losing big or losing in a disappointing fashion. That's having a tremendous impact on this team.
It is, and just guessing from the outside, some of the things that he says, I'm assuming he is not holding long meetings in the clubhouse, which is smart, right? I think he has that clubhouse. He does do a nice job of commanding a room. You listen to him in interviews. He's short. He's to the point. He's precise, and the message gets across. I'm guessing it also was the same thing in the clubhouse, and learning to pick your spots, which is really impressive when you consider his age. He's been at it for a couple of years, but that is something usually that comes along as you get further and further in your managerial career, and realizing that less is more, and that's how you're going to command that respect. That's how you're going to get a reaction from your team. That's why I'd be a terrible manager. My meetings would be too long. I'd be talking too much, and nobody would hear a word that I actually said. I think it's the opposite for John Schneider. He's gotten those guys to play. They feed off the personality of their manager, and then their emotional leaders like George Springer, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and the way he talks about them, the way they come to the ballpark, the way these guys are legitimately for each other and backing each other up, and the support that is there as well. It all seems real. They've done a good job putting this team together and having the right guy in charge to run it. And it's amazing that 12 months ago, I think most of us were looking at the Blue Jays and saying, man, those guys are in trouble. They better do something this year or they're all going to be fired.
Hey, guys, one thing was guaranteed Tuesday night. The World Series will be won on Canadian soil. By who? We don't know, but we do know we will talk to you, CJ, after Game 5 Wednesday night.
Talk to you guys tomorrow.
Thanks, CJ.
That's CJ Nitkowski. giving us his insight. As I say it each time, a wealth of baseball knowledge. We have a tied series, Kyle. Can I read you a text from my buddy? You probably received a few of these during the game as well. This is how he went into the game, texting with one of our friends who is a Dodger fan. I'm over it. Thought it would have been a better battle, but with yesterday's debacle and Springer out, it's going to take a miracle. I'm already prepared for a loss. And this is a guy that lives and dies with the Jays. And I just know that that feeling was inside a lot of Jays fans like, hey, it was a good run, but the Dodgers just they have too much. But as CJ said after that 18 inning loss, they proved that they're just as good as the Dodgers. So if anything, it gave them more confidence.
Dan, I did receive a few of those text messages through the day today, especially after I posted our last night's post-game show. And it's kind of funny because this roller coaster of emotions that Toronto sports fans insist on staying upon, they just ride the coaster lap after lap. They just can't. They played one of the most historic games ever last night. Why not just enjoy that? But it goes right back to the point CJ made after the question I asked him about Schneider. Why don't you have a little faith that this guy's got them this far and he can reset the switch? And it was a masterful performance top to bottom and on the bench tonight.
Here's what that 18 inning game gave Jays fans, because I was working with all Jays fans um, doing a thing for work today. And throughout the day, we worked together for 12 hours today. Throughout the day, hey, you guys remember that Vladdy play? Like that was just like throughout the day. Oh man, why did they do what that Schneider play where they sent him throughout the day? There because there was so much that happened. It would take your brain a minute to remember so many moments that occurred in that game.
There were so many good moments, and some of those things that people are complaining about that happened in last night's game came on the heels of the Dodgers executing perfection defensively with relay throws and throws from the outfield and perfectly positioned throws, and things went their way on some of those plays when you send the runner and you play aggressive. You don't want this team to stop playing aggressively. You want them to go for this thing right now. And I didn't have a lot of problems with the way the game was managed last night other than some of the substitutions. So the faith is strong. As you say, this series now has to be won on Canadian soil. And you know what? On that note, Dan, I'm
Mhm.
excited that that home crowd gets one more chance to show the world that they can be one of the best crowds in all of sports.
That's right. So that's gonna be Friday, Saturday. So we have a game on Halloween.
We do. We do. What are you wearing?
Well, actually, it'll work out pretty good because it gets dark so early. The trick or treaters will be done.
Mhm.
We're putting the house in darkness to watch baseball, so it should actually time out pretty well. Because first pitch, what they haven't been throwing the first pitch to like 8:15.
Yeah, give or take. And it's
Yeah.
usually trick or treaters. That's the back half of that by then
Oh,
for sure.
that's the teenagers.
And
You
and
aren't
you gotta
like,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's the teenager scavenging for candy. You gotta figure parents are keeping an eye on this game time and going, "Hey, Billy, we're starting at 4:30 this year, just so you know."
Oh yeah, the little ones. They started sometimes 4, and I'm fine with that.
That's
Get it out of
fantastic.
the way.
Out of the
So
way.
that's something to look forward to, but we have a game 5 Wednesday. I can't wait for that, and we'll be back here, on much more sleep, guaranteed
Guaranteed.
tomorrow.